Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for inviting me. And I know how you love a Geordie coming across and telling you how to do things. So this is a challenge. This is a real challenge. Okay, what we've heard already this morning is a challenge to the way we've done this kind of work for the last 20 years. And I've been doing this kind of work for about 20 years. And when I've looked back on my career in terms of challenging health inequalities, what I see is that I've managed to make the gap a bit wider. Now, if anything is a prompt to review your professional practice, then that's it for me. And what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit, really about why I think we need to do things in a very different way. Okay, and it's principally around the quote by a quote by Einstein. Now, there was a great American social commentator called Studs Terkel, and if you ever get a chance, just Google Studs Terkel and see some of the stuff that he says, because he remained true to his iconoclasm right till the end of his career. But he said, I love to quote Einstein because nobody dares contradict you. And the quote, my favorite quote of Einstein, is when Einstein said, true madness. He used the word madness, but he wasn't, I think, doing a diagnosis here. I think he meant stupidity. True madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get different results. And I think one of the things we've been doing in the work that we've done to try and challenge the differences in health, and the difference in health is just an inequality, just a difference that's unfair, isn't it? I mean, there are some differences in health. My health's different to your health. Females in this room will live longer than males. That's a difference. I don't think it's an inequality, but it's certainly a difference. So let's try and think about difference and inequality in two different ways. My view is an inequality is an unfair difference. One of the things that we've talked about a lot this morning, and I know Jude's covered and talked about, is this concept of the deficit approach. And I thought it was just worth perhaps filling this out a little bit and talking about what I think are the principal differences between the way that the majority of the work that we've done on trying to challenge health inequalities and improve health, and the way I think it could be done better. A deficit approach really uses health inequalities and sees those as very negative factors. There's actually very little evidence around anyway, very little academic evidence around challenging health inequalities anyway. And actually, I think if we get tied into an evidence-based model for challenging health inequalities, I think we take ourselves into a very difficult place, because the amount of evidence that around is actually quite small. I think what I like to refer it as is an evidence-informed model. I think there's a lot of what goes into work on health inequalities that would seem to me to be just good common sense. But we need to have that work informed by the evidence rather than based on the evidence, particularly when the evidence base is quite weak. What we're talking about here is a pathogenic model of health, okay? Pathogenesis is the causes of illness. And what we've done is we've constructed a whole industry around a pathogenic model. Our main national tool for looking at the health of communities is a joint strategic needs assessment. It's an assessment that looks at the needs of communities and the deficits of communities and maps the illness in communities. I was talking to an American asset practitioner recently who would not believe that we have a website in the UK that's an index of multiple deprivation. She said, "You've got to be kidding me. You have a website when you can find out how deprived people are?" And she was genuinely shocked that that was one of the few things that we had that allowed us to do some kind of analysis, of comparative analysis of the health of communities. So the deficit approach focuses on all the problems and needs. Now, I say this because I live in one of those places. I live in a part of the northeast that when you look at my place where I live, on all of the national maps of health, I'm the darkest colour you can get. I live in Gateshead. Now, actually, what it's like in my community and what it looks like on that map are two very, very different things. I live in a very vibrant place with a fantastic history, with brilliant community networks, with a lot of activities going on and self-help going on. And yet, if you map us out in terms of what our deficits are, we're always going to come out bottom of the pile. And I bet you've got communities in this area that will always come out bottom of the pile. Actually, the interesting thing is they've been bottom of the pile probably for the last 250, 300 years. Some have been bottom of the pile for even longer. And actually, we even know where those communities are going to be. They'll be on river estuaries. They'll be downwind of the industry. You know, that kind of east-west thing in the UK? The posh people always live in the west and the poor people always live in the east, okay? Because the smell from the industry gets blown across by the prevailing winds, okay? So we design services to fill those gaps and fix the problems. Now, that's become a bottomless pit, and I think, as quite rightly as Derek Wanless said, an unsustainable model of improving health. There isn't enough money on the planet to pour into the black hole that would be service delivery that would fix all of those problems. And I'd just like to tell you about an experience of my father. I mean, my father died last year at 91, but in the last 2 years of his life, he became the recipient of services. And what a double-edged sword that was. And what was interesting is before he was actually assessed for his needs, his neighbours used to pop in with soup and sandwiches, and they used to sit and talk to him for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And then he got assessed for meals at home. So meals at home came, and they stopped on the doorstep, handed him a foil package, which he went in and ate by himself. The neighbours stopped going round, because now he was being fed by the service. And actually what he missed was all that debate and discussion that he had with the food was irrelevant. Now, that's interesting, isn't it, how services can actually almost disconnect people from communities. And I'm sure a lot of us know that, okay? And then that leads to dependency. You know, there's a great phase around now about broken Britain. My question would be, who broke it? Did communities break it? Did ordinary people break it? Or actually, has the way we've configured services been at least partly responsible for the fact we now have almost totally dependent sections of communities who won't actually do anything until a service comes along and does it for them? And those of us who work in councils know people ring up to change a light bulb. They'll get the council, housing service out, or the Aralmo, whoever it is, to come and change a light bulb. So you've got an untenable model going on, okay? So what are the features of a deficit approach? Well, the models and strategies that emerge if you use a deficit approach are very linear. They're what I call very Newtonian. They're all about cause and effect, okay? They're all about, well, if we can understand the machine a little bit more, if we can just do a little bit more analysis of the data, we'll find out more, we'll get better at it. But that's the Einstein stuff. And the sad thing is, the universe doesn't work like this. Actually, the universe works in a completely different way. And so, quantum physicists will tell us that now. The universe is complex, it's adaptive, it's polycentric, it involves chaos. And the one thing we don't want in public services is a bit of healthy chaos. The structure that we've designed, which is based on the deficit approach, is absolutely brilliant if you're trying to produce lots of the same. And I'm not saying that it's not a good idea. I'm going to buy a new car after Christmas. And the one thing I want is for it to have been designed by a team of experts and every car to be the same and equally safe and equally reliable and equally fuel economic, okay? But with health inequalities, we're not doing that. And it worries me that we've, into the lexicon of public health, has crept this phrase, industrial scale work on healthy communities. I don't think people are cars. I don't think they're widgets in a factory. I don't know how we can do industrial scale work with people. So that model that's based on a very linear structure and a very Newtonian analysis is actually not a model that's going to deliver improvements in health beyond a certain level, and it's certainly not going to challenge inequalities. And one of the other things we've done in terms of delivering a deficit model is we've tried to target services tighter and tighter and tighter. And we've still got DH talking about market segmentation here. People get segmented. We've actually got services that deal with a bit of a person. Oh, you're obese. We've got a service for that bit of you. Oh, you've got sexual health problems. We've got a service that deals with that bit of you. And remember, the tighter the target, the easier it is to miss it.